Christine Erickson, thank you so much for sitting down with me to talk about your candidacy for mayor of Sioux Falls.
Yes.
I'm very excited to dive into a whole bunch of topics, but I want to start with just sort of the let's get to know you.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to run for mayor?
Yeah, well, so I'm a mom of three boys, Anthony, Braylon, Charlie, one
Shout
at
out.
SDSU and two at Jefferson, a junior and a freshman there. So, when it comes down to my why, growing up in South Dakota, being a lifelong South Dakotan, my father always instilled in us the value of service. We didn't grow up with a lot, we didn't have a lot, but we always had time. And so I don't know that my dad ever intended me to run for mayor, but here we are. My father's a former Army vet. My brother served as a National Guard Army as well. And so my path was public service in this role. And so being able to give back to the community that I choose to call home and that I want to see flourish and have opportunities for my kids and other kids and just people. The opportunities are endless here.
And you're no stranger to public service in
No.
Sioux Falls as well. You served as a city councilor for, remind me when.
Yeah, so I served actually before that in the state legislature.
Okay, it was legislature first and then council.
Yep.
Okay.
So I did 2 years in the state legislature and quickly realized how many decisions are really made at home. That's the everyday decision. Is getting to see that impact was so important to me. And so I chose to run at large for the city council and did that for 8 years. And so I've been off of the city council for 4 years. Sold my business, and then I have been in my current role as the president of South Dakota Auto Dealers and South Dakota Trucking Associations for the last 5 years. So wearing that legislative hat, owning a business, knowing what it takes to balance a budget and really work through that, and then now being in the private sector, getting to represent really the cornerstone of all commerce. Nothing moves without my guys and gals.
Yeah.
Nothing.
That's awesome. I want to start out, we've started with kind of intended to be a fun one, but it's become quite a tricky one for people. If you could eat at only one Sioux Falls restaurant for the rest of the year, where are you going?
Oof, that's tough.
I know,
And
there's
will
no
tell
shortage
you,
of choices.
And so here's my thing. I like to keep it casual.
Love it.
I like a good vibe, and I like it to be close to home. And so there are many. I could pick 10 that we keep in our rotation. Crawford's is a favorite downtown. However, if I want to keep it casual, have quick, being able to get in and out, and they have the best chislic in town, is the Gateway Lounge, West Side Sioux Falls.
Okay, I was trying to guess in my head with the chislic, but I like that.
The best chislic, hands down, in Sioux Falls is the Gateway Lounge. But we love coming downtown. Like I said, we go to Crawford's.
Yeah.
We love Blarney Stone. We love getting all around town and truly living way west side. A lot of times we'll pick to go to east side to making sure that we're getting throughout Sioux Falls.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I want to get into some of the topics. The biggest thing that readers told me they want to hear about is housing. So I have a couple questions on that front. I want to start with just what is your philosophy when it comes to addressing homelessness in our community? And what, if anything, would you do differently than what's the current administration is doing?
Yeah, so with that, when I was on the city council, I got to play a really important role in what was called at that time the triage center.
Yeah,
it's now called the Link.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was kind of what we thought was the low-hanging fruit, to be able to get those folks that were being sent to the jail, get them into a sobering center. I think that we need to do a little bit of a reset in that area and really meet people where we are. Where are we handing them off to next? I think there's a little bit of a disconnect that we can get folks the help that they need. I love the program that Downtown Sioux Falls has with the folks in the red shirts, and they're meeting people. I don't think that's their role to be the homeless coordinator with that. However, they're the first line of defense a lot of times in getting people where they need to go. And so I think we need to really hone in on that and find out the root of homelessness.
Yeah.
Technically, it falls within the county's responsibilities per state law, but the city is within the county, and we need to be a good partner on that. And so I envision some collaboration on how we can really move the needle and getting people the help that they need.
Yeah. I want to talk too about, affordable housing, workforce housing has been a big topic over the last, several years in Pierre and Sioux Falls.
Yeah.
What role do you think Sioux Falls as a city should play in addressing the housing needs of the broader community?
Yeah, so workforce housing is so critical. In the business that I had previously, we built relationships with traveling business professionals across the nation that needed housing. And so people don't always view that as maybe a need. We saw a need and filled that niche with our healthcare systems. We're bringing in a ton of local doctors and traveling nurses. And oftentimes they just need a quiet, safe, clean place to live. They're working a crazy amount of hours. And so we did that and we filled that need. And so we were a part of the solution to helping that workforce. When we talk about affordable housing, that first-time home buyer age has really creeped up. I bought my first home at the ripe age of 24. My son is almost 21, and I just don't know that he would be able to do that because they're being priced out. And so if we can dive in, remove some of that red tape, and really focus on why the home rate is going so high. Yes, interest rates are high, land costs have gone up, building costs have gone up, all of that has gone up. But for the city of Sioux Falls, how can we make sure that we're issuing our building permits quickly and also making sure that we're not just passing more regulation because we think we need to do it. Let's make sure we're passing it, that it makes sense. Maybe let's get rid of some of that so we can get the housing market going faster.
Yeah. I want to pivot to talk about public safety. The police department has grown significantly, as has Sioux Falls, over the last 8-10 years. With that, of course, the costs and the budget have gone up quite a bit. If elected, how would you balance the important public safety needs of the community with some of the budget realities facing Sioux Falls?
Well, look, public safety is really the basic function of government, really. When I call 911 and I need help, I want to make sure fire or police is showing up, whatever that looks like for our community. And so I think it's really just back to the basics of that. As a city councilor, I supported law enforcement with police overtime, helped navigate some of the challenges that they had with the police radio system, with the state as well, making sure that they have that critical technology to being able to respond quickly. And so as we see the city grow, we need more law enforcement. And I'm so fortunate, I think we're all so fortunate in this community that we really support law enforcement. We value them, we see the need, and we see them. Mayor Paul Tanakin has done a fantastic job at really focusing in on public safety with that. And so I want to keep doing that, giving them the resources that they need to modernize, to keeping our community safe. If you don't feel safe, you won't maybe expand your family, your business. It's really the cornerstone of making sure our community is alive and well.
Another public safety question that came up from a number of readers was, do you support collaboration? Excuse me, let me try that again. Do you support collaboration between the Sioux Falls Police Department and federal immigration officials?
Yes, I do. I think that we should not get in the way. I think that collaboration is key anytime necessary. And so I think it's really important that not just federal, but I mean the state, we need to be working with them, the county with a sheriff. We'll have a new sheriff coming up soon as well, which is an exciting opportunity to collaborate with them. And so I think collaboration is key in all things that we do, whether that's federal, state, or county. We should be collaborating together. So we're not just surprised when something happens, but we know and we can work together. I certainly don't want to get in the way of law enforcement doing their job. Yeah.
Let's pivot to talk about the arts. The city's in the process now of developing an arts and culture master plan. Yes. And part of that, they shared with council maybe a month ago, a recent survey showing that most residents do support some level of city funding for the arts. How would you personally approach decisions about funding public art projects?
Yeah, so arts are important in our community. It can't just be all focused on one thing or the other. We have a diverse Sioux Falls, and so I think arts do bring people into our community. We've got a great events that happen here as well. It's definitely a balance on making sure that we are lifting up the arts community, but also making sure it's a balance with all things considered in a tight budget.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another question readers had was related to sustainability. The city a few years ago developed a sustainability plan. There weren't a ton of real big action items out of that, but I'm curious of what would be your approach to sustainability and protecting natural resources, and specifically talking about, as we continue to grow and develop as a city.
Yeah, so I love this question. Yeah. As I was leaving City Council, I had an opportunity to work with a startup that was very, very innovative. The business is called Zahn Technologies, Z-A-H-N. I will spell it for the listeners. What he is doing is literally recycling things that we didn't think we ever could. What he's doing is, diapers. Crazy, right? When you have a water bottle, the cap can't be recycled because it's in a different area, right? And so this is sustainability. This is action items. This is making a difference for our landfill. Just imagine if we didn't have to continue to grow our landfill and continue to bury that garbage, but we could recycle it. And so what some of the items that he is creating and doing, he's really gotten his feet under him here recently, is railroad ties.
Interesting.
Fence posts. So he's in the ag industry, and so farmers need fence posts. These fence posts last 20 years or more, and they're made of full recyclable items. So when they've hit their useful life, they can then be recycled and put into more fence posts or railroad ties. Railroad ties oftentimes are soaked in the oil, penetrating the land. Just think what we could do with a business like this right here in South Dakota, being able to impact our recycling. Those are action items I'm excited about, and that's really what sustainability is about.
That's great. I want to ask specifically, there have been concerns in recent months about, and I know this was a huge topic in the legislature as well, but data centers. How would you approach, obviously the sort of new technology, developing Sioux Falls economy, but also addressing some of those questions and concerns about water usage, electricity rates? How do you kind of marry those things together?
Yes, and I know this has been a really, really hot topic. I'm listening, I'm hearing the concerns. I think that's really important. And I think what we need to do is give the community and those folks that have real concerns some sort of assurance with that. I appreciated what the City Council did when they did pass that rezone, is they put those in place. That wasn't the way that is usually done. And so I appreciated them being forward thinking and saying, hey, constituents, I hear you. We're going to put those safeguards in place. You got to pay for your own electricity. You got to pay for your own water use. And oh, by the way, it's closed loop system, so you're not going to deplete our water resources. Those two items are so important, and giving peace of mind to people is really important. And so I also know that we as a society are not using less data. We're using more data. And most of the people that did speak at the City Council meeting had their speeches on a cell phone.
Well, most people listening to this are probably on a cell phone too. So
I know I can't leave my home without my cell phone. I run a lot of my business on my cell phone. And so we're using more data as a society. I want to keep that close to home. I don't want to see that go overseas. I would like to see that close to home. I do support the local control and making sure each of those municipalities have the decision that, does this work for your community? It doesn't work everywhere, and I get that. I also want to be mindful that in South Dakota, we do tax electricity. Other states do not, but they have an income tax. And so there's kind of a balance of, where should these go? Where do they fit? I also like to tie in like the TV, okay? Look at TVs nowadays, how thin they are, how light they are. TVs have changed a lot. Silly example, data centers have changed a lot. We've had data centers in our community for the last 25 years that most people don't realize. Yes, on a much smaller scale. I get that. But I think it's important to recognize that we've been living with these in our community for many, many years.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about childcare. We've got two moms sitting here talking.
Yes.
What role, if any, do you think the city should play in addressing or facilitating conversations on the ongoing childcare crisis in Sioux Falls?
Childcare is definitely a hot topic. I have some great nephews now, and it's so fun to see them growing up. And the change that my nephew and his wife make. They work opposite shifts to avoid some of the childcare, and some families are having to do that. They do it for personal reasons too, because they want to be around their little guy, right? He's adorable. And so I know childcare is definitely a topic that is expensive to young families and having to make some tough decisions. The city council did do an exhaustive report, presented that to the city council. Ultimately, that was decided that it's maybe not the role of the city government. However, they have invested in Southeast Tech to give some grant programs for people that want to start and go into that education system. I also know that the federal government has also done a few different plans in there. We haven't seen the fruits of that labor yet, and so I think hopefully that will start coming forward here soon, that we'll be able to see some of that relief.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about one of the most exciting announcements of recent history, the Smithfield decision, moving out of downtown to the northwest side of town. What is your vision for what will now be known as the Sanford District? And maybe more importantly, how do you plan to approach decision-making as a community when it comes to the future of that space?
What I think is so exciting about that space is it's going to be a blank slate, a total blank slate. There is also some additional adjacent land that the city owns that has no big buildings really, a few buildings, but not much, that can also be repurposed and grown into. The prison will be relocating. I know a lot of those buildings will still maintain there, but the reach is even beyond that Sanford district. And so what an awesome opportunity for our community to be able to dream and see that. I don't even know if it will be completed in my lifetime. And that's okay. We want to be very, not slow, but we need to do it in a very thoughtful approach. It's not a race. We don't need to just put something there, but making sure that we're dreaming with the community that this is a generational development that will happen for a very, very long time. And so I definitely want to see it be mixed use. I think there should be some entertainment. I think we need to incorporate some of the arts in there. But the sky's the limit with that. And I think it's really exciting. I definitely want the public's knowledge and want them involved in what that could be too. I think the other thing that's really interesting to talk about as well is Smithfield chose to move to that location. Had that previous election happened in a different way, they would not have been able to relocate within the city limits of Sioux Falls. And I know that's a little bit controversial for some folks thinking that might not be the right location. Foundation Park was rezoned over 10 years ago for heavy industrial. We knew that they were going to keep bringing in businesses in that manufacturing role there. And so had that vote gone a different way, this project would not have been able to happen.
Yeah. There's another kind of question mark hanging over downtown with the Riverline District. It's kind of a two-part question. First of all, do you support a convention center downtown? And what do you want to see on that site specifically? If it's a convention center, if it's not, how does that tie into some of this broader plan?
So I definitely think there's a need for downtown convention space. I really do. It's timing. Is the time right now? As we continue to talk about property taxes and people wanting relief, it's really hard to come forward and say, hey, we need this massive $500 million project or $800 million project to come in. But I do think, I'll say it, a good tax is a tax somebody else pays. The convention center space is probably not for the people that live here. It's for attracting people from out of state to come here and have conventions. I travel a lot for my current role, and I get to go to all these different convention spaces and spend my money there. So bringing those folks in from outside of Sioux Falls to have this space is good for our economy in keeping our property taxes low and keeping the sales tax coming in. I don't know if that's the best location. I shared a story earlier today with some folks that in South Dakota, we like to park right outside the door and walk in. So making sure it's an accessible spot, but is it going to do what we want it to do for downtown? The viaducts are another conversation.
Coming up.
And so is it close enough for us to continue to go eat at restaurants and have the hotel space? that's something that I'll dive in more, and I'm excited to talk about in the future.
Yeah. Sioux Falls is obviously, become a really big community.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of cultures, creeds, political beliefs, all types of different people who live here. As mayor, you'd be representing all of them. How do you plan to ensure all of the constituents are represented in city decision making?
So one of the things that I really thrive on in my leadership style is one that's very collaborative. I love sitting down with people that think differently than me. I think good policy comes from breaking bread with folks that look and feel and sound different than you, but also those people that do think the same as you as well. That's where good policy comes from, where you can sit around a table, hash out ideas, and then move our city forward in the right way. Like I said, I'm very collaborative in nature, and so I don't shy away from any conversations. I love to roll my sleeves up and get to work. And so with Sioux Falls looking and feeling and sounding different, you'll see me everywhere, and that's something I really love to do. I want to be a mayor within the people and be accessible.
Yeah. Christine, I want to thank you so much for tackling all these topics with us.
Yeah.
I also want to give you an opportunity to share any priorities or any topics that we didn't hit on directly. What do you want voters to know ahead of Election Day?
So I think what's really important for our city and our state is we've got to do better with relationships when it comes to peer. For me, being a former legislator, former city councilor, I want to build those relationships starting on day one with our senators and representatives, as well as the next governor.
Right.
It is so important that when those decisions are made, they have a direct line to someone who can answer the questions and know, how is this going to impact the city I live, work, and play in? For me, that comes again with collaboration and sitting down with legislators right away, not just once a year saying, hey, these are our priorities, go do good things. It starts with a relationship from day one. You'll see me bring a chair to those meetings and belly up right away and say, let's talk. What do we need to do better? What do we need to do differently? And how can we move Sioux Falls forward for the greater good of all?
Yeah. Anything else you wanna hit on or let folks know about before Election Day about your campaign or your candidacy?
Yeah, well, I would just share my website if that's appropriate.
That's fine.
ChristineForSiouxFalls.com is our website. Check us out there. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. There's ways to get involved in our campaign, as well as learning about where we are, what we're doing, and what we're up to.
Yeah. Fantastic. Again, thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
best of luck to you on the rest of the
Thank
campaign
you.
trail.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.